But yeah, as I was saying, the kitchen, feel free to use the kitchen, water, microwave, whatever. So the kitchen is available. Also, there is a restroom in the entry that everyone came in. There's a public restroom there, so feel free to use that. And I know the weather, it's a little chilly tonight, but I'm hoping that when the weather's warmer that people just feel comfortable and kind of want to hang out on the deck. Or I put a fire ring in the other night, and I'll be putting more chairs outside. And kind of what I'm hoping for is that this would almost be an alternative to a bar type setting, kind of a positive environment where people might just want to come and hang out.
So you don't think
Come
it
to
is a
Ken's
bar?
and party?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, come to Ken's place and party.
Yeah, they might think it is a bar.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Well,
nice.
when I drive down Knowles, I see everyone kind of hanging out at the Badger, or and I think it'd be nice if they had a place they could hang out that wasn't a bar.
Peaceful?
So yeah, a place that's peaceful. So yeah. So
Do you have your sign? Do you have a sign?
I have a banner. I don't have the actual sign made up yet, and I didn't have time to do the banner today. I was actually cleaning the floors and trying to get the dust off, because I kind of envisioned a lot of white socks, and the floor was dusty.
That's what you want, make everybody.
Yeah, yep. The bamboo is beautiful, and
It is.
it's pretty easy to work with, but the dust it created is almost like talcum powder. It's just the finest sawdust I've really ever worked with, and so it kind of got into everything. So I really wanted to do a deep clean
Where's your
today.
bamboo thing? Is that upstairs too?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Does it
that's-
scratch? Is it softwood?
No, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard. I've had a couple things that I've dropped already, but yeah, it'll be beautiful as it scuffs up.
So you're cold too. Really just
Yeah. So yeah, that's my hope though, is that people will feel like they want to get here early and just hang out and socialize and stay late. And also, if people are interested in using the space for any type of supportive groups or things like that, meetings, I'm open to that. I'd like to have the space available and used, from morning to night. So that's my hope. But welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's a special night, our first night here, and so it's wonderful to have people to share it with. And so we'll get into our meditation in a moment, but I'd kind of like to break in the new bell. Kind of use it as an opportunity to use this with you all. And one of the things that we've done, it's kind of a tradition, is mental purification before we start our meditation. And so what that is just an opportunity to become kind of conscious of maybe anything that you're holding on to that is a hindrance in the mind. Sometimes there's negativity or worry or fear or anger or stress. And when we become aware of those things, we have an opportunity to put them down and to cultivate some wholesome states of consciousness. And so we traditionally cultivate compassion, loving kindness, appreciative joy or empathetic joy, and also equanimity, so peacefulness and balance. So if you want to just take a moment, close your eyes, become aware of any of those things that might be helpful to put down temporarily in the safety of this place, in this place of refuge, and to become aware of your desire to cultivate these wholesome states of consciousness, compassion for all living beings, a deep desire that all beings will be well, free from pain and suffering, free from the causes of pain and suffering, and a strong desire that all beings will be surrounded by love and kindness, and a strong desire that all beings can be happy and joyful, and not in a materialistic sense, but in an internal, uncaused joy, as it's said in some of the sutras. And then finally, equanimity. May all beings be peaceful, free, at ease, free from craving and clinging and aversion. So with that, I'll sound the big bell. That's beautiful. And before we meditate, I wanted to share this Bodhisattva vow. This is written by Shantideva. And I was thinking about sort of a mission statement for this place and for the work that we're going to do here. And I found this, and this has really been special to me. So I want to share it with you. It's kind of the dedication for this space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a guide for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. So that is the dedication of this space. And now let's meditate together, guided meditation. So feel free to use the space. Stretch out on the floor, lay down. I've got a few cushions and yoga mats. Some of you bring your own. So feel free to, you can meditate sitting in a chair. You could sit on the floor. You can lay down, whatever is comfortable. And feel free to move those chairs too if you want to, if you want to sit and kind of stretch out your legs. Yeah, help yourself. The chairs can be moved around. So feel free to do that. Just really be comfortable in the space. Because that'll be the thing, honestly, that makes me the happiest, is to see you enjoying and using the space. So take a moment to get comfortable. The other thing is the lights. Feel free to turn those off if you want to, or we can turn them brighter. They're three-way lights. So I thought rather than have lights on the ceiling, I'd just get some floor lamps and we could go that route. And be aware though that there are candles burning in front of the Buddha, so don't burn yourself or set yourself on fire. So if everybody's comfortable in the way that they're sitting or in the way that they're laying, just take a moment to check in with your body. If there's any obvious conflict in the body, you can release it, make adjustments. Sometimes it helps to check in and see if there is symmetry in your body, so that both the right and left side are supporting about the same amount of body weight, and so that there's no undue strain on one part or the other. And as we do our meditation together, I'll guide us through the entire practice, but you don't need to hold still. You don't need to not move. Feel free to adjust your posture or your position at any time during the meditation. It's fine to do that. So with those few instructions, I'll sound the meditation bell to begin the meditation, and just invite you to follow the sound of the bell, and then I'll start guiding. Just follow the sound of the bell. Follow the sound of the bell as it fades into silence. And let the silence be a very warm and welcoming invitation to turn your senses inward. Become aware of what it feels like to be present in your own body. Whether you're sitting or laying, just become aware of that feeling of being present. And with that sense of presence established, let's bring our awareness up to the top of the head and to the area of the scalp. And for a few moments, just focus your awareness on any physical sensations in the scalp. So any physical sensations, anything you feel. Physical sensations, they could be temperature sensations, if it feels warm to you or cool. Sometimes there is a sensation of air movement. You might feel that on the scalp or on the hair. Sometimes there are sensations on the surface of the skin, a tingling or a pulsation, sometimes an itch or a tickle. So just open up your awareness to these natural sensations. Remain focused on them as they come and go. And as you're observing sensations, if there's any tension present anywhere in the scalp, just release that tension. Let it go. Just let it leave the body. Give it permission. I sometimes will share the image of a butterfly when we release our tension. If you were to find a butterfly that was trapped on your porch or in your home on a windowsill, you might, upon noticing the butterfly, you might walk up and cup it very gently in your hands and carry it outside and release it into the grass or into the trees. And as you did that, there would be a real sense of love and compassion and kindness. And as you discover tension in your own body, release it with that same spirit of kindness. Just let it go with a real sense of compassion. And now, from the scalp, we'll move our awareness downward into the forehead, into the temples, through the eyebrows and into the eyes. And with our awareness focused in these areas, once again, just become aware of physical sensations. Anything you notice, just remain aware. Sensations arise and pass away. Just focus on them. Focus on the sensations. Let go of any tension you find in the forehead. If the brow is furrowed or the temples are tight, let that tension go. Allow the eyebrows to relax. And if the eyes are squinted or tight, just let them relax too. Continue to observe the sensations. And now we'll guide the awareness downward into the ears, from the temples down into the ears. Observe the sensations and continue moving the awareness forward from the ears into the cheekbones. Let it pass through them into the face, and from the eyes downward, let it move through the nose. Let awareness pass down through the lips and mouth and chin. Again, everywhere awareness moves, just focus on the physical sensations. And any tension you encounter, just let it go. Allow the tension to leave the body and remain focused on the sensations. Now, from the chin, we'll begin to move the awareness downward into the neck. Let it move through the neck, through the throat, through the sides of the neck, into the back of the neck. And again, as I guide you through these parts of the body, just focus the awareness on sensation. And there's no need to think about any of the sensations or intellectualize them. Just try to let it be the bare experience of sensation, noticing tension, and giving it permission to leave the body. And from the neck, you can let the awareness move downward into the shoulders. With awareness in the shoulders, observing the different sensations. Now here in the shoulders, you might discover sensations of contact between your shoulders and the chair or the floor or the cushion. These are just sensations to be known by awareness. You might also notice a sensation of contact between your skin and your clothing. Allow tension in the shoulders to leave the body. Let them drop if they're shrugged. Just release. Now allow the awareness to move from the shoulders down into the upper arms. And begin by observing sensations in the biceps, in the front part of the upper arm, all the way from the shoulder down to the elbow joint. And then rotating that awareness, moving inward to the inside part of the upper arms, observing the sensations, letting the tension go, moving to the back part of the upper arms, the triceps, observing and releasing. And then moving the awareness to the outside part of the upper arms. Again, just observing, letting tension go. And now allow the awareness to move down into the elbow joints. See if you can really feel this movement of awareness, the soothing stability of the awareness. Moving down into the forearms now, moving down toward the wrists. Just observe, remain aware, release tension. Allow the awareness to move through the wrists. Feel it moving through the wrists into the hands. And with awareness in the hands, begin to observe the different parts. The heels of the hands, the palms, and moving around to the tops of the hands, the thumbs and fingers. And finally bring the awareness to the tips of the fingers and to the fingernails. And just give it a few moments. See if any sensations become known by your awareness. You might notice a very subtle tingling in the fingernails, or a feeling of energy. Or you may not notice anything in particular, and that's fine. But now from the fingernails, we will maintain a continuity of awareness and bring the awareness up to the top of the chest, beginning with the collarbones, and then letting the awareness move downward through the chest, downward through the rib cage, all the way down to the base of the sternum, observing the sensations. And as you observe the sensations, again, try to be objective in your observation. You're not judging the sensations, choosing which ones you want or don't want. You're just observing what's there, allowing tension to go, being aware of sensation, letting this center and stabilize the body and mind. And now you can bring the awareness up to the underarms and allow it to move down slowly through the sides of the body, all the way down to the waist, just observing the subtle flow of awareness. And from the waist, you can guide the awareness forward into the belly. Become aware of the sensations in the belly, rising and falling with the breath, expanding and contracting. If there's tension in the belly, just let it relax, release the tension. It's sometimes helpful to picture a toddler's tummy or a baby's tummy, the way they hang out so naturally. Just let your belly relax. Continue to observe the sensations. And now from the belly, again, we'll maintain our continuity of awareness and bring the awareness around to the top of the back. You can start at the base of the neck and allow the awareness to flow downward through the upper third of the back, through the shoulder blades, through the muscles and skin of the upper back. Just be aware of the sensations. Let the tension go. Sometimes in the back or in other parts of the body, we encounter sensations that are perhaps unpleasant or difficult. Sometimes there are sensations of pain or fatigue. And you might notice that there is a lot of tension around these difficult sensations. But becoming aware of them, allow all the spaciousness that your body and mind need around those difficult sensations. Don't push against them with aversion or disliking. Just allow them to be as they are. Because either way, they will be as they are. So allow them to be. Give them space. Let your awareness move. Allow tension to leave the body. And let the awareness move downward through the middle third of the back. And feel it as it flows down into the lower part of the back. Observing, releasing, remaining present with the awareness. Let the awareness flow downward now into the sit bones. Feel it moving through the hips and throughout the pelvis. Moving awareness through these areas. Again, be aware of sensation. Allow tension to go. Continue to observe. Moving from the pelvis now into the thighs. From the tops of the thighs all the way down to the knees. Let's focus on the top surface of the thighs. The sensations. Noticing tension, letting it leave the body. Rotating around to the outside surface of the thighs. Same process. And then rotating around further to the underside of the thighs. Observing the sensations, whatever they are. Letting the tension go. Moving the awareness around to the inside part of the thighs now. And again, simply observe sensation. Let go of tension. Remain aware. And feel as the awareness flows from the thighs down through the knee joints now. If there is discomfort in the knees, you can use that same process of bringing expansive awareness to the unpleasant sensations, just allowing them to be as they are, giving them all the space they need in your awareness, allowing awareness to move, and with it, release the tension. Move the awareness from the knees down into the shins, down through the calves. Feel it moving downward through the ankles and into the feet. And with awareness in the feet, observe the smaller parts of the feet, the heels. Observe the soles, the balls of the feet. Bringing awareness to the tops of the feet, observe the sensations there. And then bringing the awareness downward into the toes. Being aware of the sensations. If there's any tension in your toes, let that go. You can finally bring the awareness to the toenails. If there's any sensation in the toenails, just observe very carefully, very subtly. Just observe. And now we'll bring the awareness once again up to the top of the head, once again to the scalp, but this time at your own pace. You can just move the awareness down through the body. Move through the head and face and downward, part by part. Just follow about the same path that we followed the first time through, so that no part is forgotten. And just move your awareness through, noticing the sensations again, noticing the tension. There are places in the body where tension has returned. After just a few minutes, you may have released the tension in one part of the body and you're finding that it's come back. And we discover in the practice of meditation that when we go through difficulties, stressful situations, or things that make us angry or fearful, that we respond by tensing up the body. The muscles tense, and even after the situations that cause us to be fearful or angry or upset, even after those situations have passed away, the tension in the body remains. So by becoming aware of these places where you hold tension habitually, you can release it again and again. And with it, you can release the echoes of the difficult emotions, the afflictive emotions that have caused you tension. And once you've had a chance to move your awareness down through the body at least once, you can bring your awareness up to the base of the nose. And just focus on that little patch of skin beneath the nostrils and above the upper lip. And then from this place, you can expand the awareness a little further to include the rings of the nostrils. And then you can expand the awareness just a bit further to include the nasal passages. So with awareness focused on this triangular area of the nose, just be aware of the movement of the breath. As you're breathing in, just be aware that you're breathing in. As you're breathing out, just be aware that you're breathing out. You don't need to manipulate the breath in any way. Just let it come and go as it will. Observe the movement of the breath. Try to stay with the full duration of each breath, staying with the in-breath as it begins as it slows, as it pauses momentarily, and then it becomes the out-breath. Stay with the full duration of the out-breath as it begins, as it slows and pauses and becomes the next in-breath. Just stay with the movement of the breath. And as you remain focused on this triangular area of the nose, become aware of the touch of the breath. Anywhere in this part of the nose, anywhere in this triangular area. Breathing in, the touch of the breath. Breathing out, the touch of the breath. And as you observe the touch of the breath, become aware of even more subtle sensations within it. As you breathe in, the air is a little cooler in the nose. As you breathe out, the air is a little warmer. As you breathe in, the air is a little drier. As you breathe out, it's a little more moist. So just remain focused here on the triangular area of the nose, observing the movement of the breath and the touch and sensations of the breath. There are times when distractions arise. You might pull the awareness away from the breathing. Sometimes sounds in the room or outside can distract us momentarily. If you become aware of distraction in the mind, you can just guide the awareness back to the nose. And once again, just focus on the movement of the breath and the touch and the sensations. And just let the sounds go. Focus on the nose. Sometimes sensations in the body can distract us. There can be a sensation of discomfort or fatigue in the body, and that can pull the awareness away from the breath. But if you notice that, it's actually a wonderful opportunity to return the awareness to the breath. Just notice there's been a distraction, return to the breath. And sometimes you'll discover that the mind simply wanders away in thought, imagining, remembering. And noticing this, if the mind moves away, the moment you notice, again, it's a wonderful opportunity. Just guide the awareness back to the breath with all the compassion and gentleness. Just return to the triangular area of the nose. Remain focused on the movement of the breath, the touch of the breath, the sensations of the breath. And let's do this together for just a few minutes in silent meditation, and then I'll sound the bell to end the practice. Just take your time coming out of the meditation. It helps to move around a little bit, stretch. Feel free to stand up and walk around if you want to. Feel free to use the bathroom or get some water in the kitchen. Just be gentle with yourself as you come out of the meditation.
Sorry.
Just maintain that feeling of compassionate awareness. That meditation was about 30 minutes, if you're wondering, so it was wonderful. Wonderful meditation.
Comfortable chairs.
They are. They're really nice chairs.
I'm glad you like them. Yeah, it's almost like a memory foam or something. That's it.
Your bamboo? Or,
That,
water dripping?
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I need to play with it a little bit.
Yeah.
Cheryl's talking about the bamboo fountain. It's
Hide it upstairs.
yeah. Oh no, it's gonna be down here. I just haven't had a chance to bring. I have a room that's filled with different statues and all this other stuff. I haven't had a chance to bring it down.
Decorate.
Yeah. Well, cause yeah, I was working on the space, really up until about 5 o'clock tonight. So yeah, I didn't have much time for that. But yeah, all that's gonna come down. So it's gonna be beautiful. One thing I wanted to mention is there's a closet there behind Cheryl and Norma. And feel free, if you have like cushions or blankets or stuff that you use for meditation and you just want to leave it here, you're welcome to do that. It's no problem. It might get rustled around a little bit when the yoga folks come because they're going to be leaving their stuff here too. But yeah, feel free. And then the intention is that I'll be getting cushions like what I'm sitting on here for the rest of the floor. But I got to get my sewing machine out of storage, and I got to switch to that. Instead of hardwood floor, I'll switch to sewing for a period of time, which I like. I make these, and I really get a kick out of it. So, little quote from Pema Chodron as we transition here. She says, "You are the sky. Everything else is just weather. You are the sky. Everything else is just weather." So the question I have is, did anybody notice during meditation that you have a wanting mind? Anybody run across that or bump into it? That's the topic of tonight's talk, is the wanting mind. And hopefully everybody has a handout or got one. And if you didn't, let me know and I'll bring more down before you go. And you don't have to follow along. I just point out that the handout has kind of the notes from tonight's talk in it, so that you don't have to feel like you need to capture everything if you're a note taker. But again, remember the talks are uploaded, so you can listen to them again if you want to. But that wanting mind, it's something that a lot of times in just sort of the clutter and the noise of our daily lives, we're doing so many things, we have so many tasks, so much going on, that a lot of times we're not aware of this arising of the wanting mind, or this expression of the wanting mind. And so again, just back to our experience during meditation, there's a good chance that you experience some discomfort somewhere in the body or a little fatigue at some point in time, and you may have noticed then that you're thinking, I wish that didn't hurt, or I'm trying to find a way to relieve the pain. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just an example of the wanting mind. And when the wanting mind is there, there is a lack of equanimity. There's a certain degree of dis-ease in the body and in the mind whenever the wanting mind is present. Then there are these moments where we become conscious of it and we release it, or it spontaneously transitions into something else. The wanting mind starts to subside, and then the peacefulness comes back. So it's just this real simple thing to notice. The wanting mind comes up, kind of sets us a little off balance, makes us want things, makes us kind of question, is this okay, what I have, is this enough? Can I make this experience any better? You know, do I want music? Do I want food? Do I want ice cream? Am I too hot? Am I too cold? Is there discomfort? All of these things are just expressions of the wanting mind. And again, I'm not suggesting that any of these things are wrong in the sense of right and wrong, but I'm just suggesting if you notice when the wanting mind is present, when the wanting mind is expressing yourself, that there is this lack of equanimity, this feeling of dis-ease or agitation in the body and mind. So, now I'll just read from the handout a little bit. For many of us, the concept of non-attachment is difficult to grasp. We tend to think about it from the same Western perspective that we've all grown up with. You know, we've all grown up here in this culture, in this country, most of us, and so we have this idea that to be non-attached is synonymous with not caring or being disconnected from society or from what's going on around us, or not caring, or that compassion and non-attachment are somehow contradictory. But in the Buddhist teachings, and I teach, you know, I come at this from a very non-religious vantage point, is just sort of the philosophical teaching of Buddhism. It's not about not caring or being a passive doormat, but on the contrary, it is about action and freedom and empowerment. And it's not a phony, egocentric empowerment that we sometimes convince ourselves that, you know, if we get the right kind of car or the right house or the right amount of money or the right title, that we're empowered. But if you think about true freedom as being freedom from the wanting mind, freedom from that thing that makes us think that the new car will be the solution. You know, so it's actually going a level deeper there, realizing that true freedom is freedom from a lot of the things that we think are necessary to make us whole people, where for the most part, many of those things are just expressions of the wanting mind. A new car would be nice. As the car starts to get old and rusty, it sometimes becomes a little embarrassing. And ice cream would be nice. But when we get the ice cream, sometimes we feel a little guilty about breaking the diet. You think of the wanting mind as all of these expressions of I need this or I need that, or life would be a little better if. And so it's not saying don't get the ice cream or don't get the new car, but it's about realizing that you can be free from those ideas. And that's the real peace. The real peace. And we experience that as we meditate. There are these moments where sounds come up and we kind of reflexively react to them with disliking because we feel maybe disturbed for a moment, or we hear a vehicle driving by and we kind of wonder, oh, is that a truck or a car or a motorcycle? But then there's those moments where we just let that go consciously with awareness. We know that we've been distracted, but we just release it. We kind of make peace with the whole world right there, with the whole universe, in just that letting go and that decision not to react. And that's the real freedom. It's having the power to choose not to react to those things that cause us to suffer. This is an extreme example, and a real harsh one, but this is how Thich Quang Duc was able to self-immolate in 1963 in protest. of the South Vietnamese government's treatment of Buddhist monks in the South, and also of the Vietnam War in general. Probably everybody has that image just seared into their memory of that monk who had set himself on fire in the street in Saigon. But again, this complete letting go is what ultimately gave him freedom to make that decision. Now, I don't think that's anything that any of us should do. Don't get the idea. Yeah, don't get the idea that I'm suggesting you do that. But it's realizing that there is a freedom available that would allow you to get to that point. And that's the freedom that comes from the practice of meditation and from all the teachings in the suttas. And the suttas state that dukkha, this thing dukkha, that's a Pali word. It means dis-ease, stress, worry, suffering. The suttas state that this dukkha, this suffering, is caused by tanha, which is craving, and upadana, which is clinging. We usually add the word aversion to those two to kind of round it out. So we talk about craving, clinging, and aversion. But really, aversion is craving. It's just kind of a reversed polarity. So sort of that same feeling of wanting something. We have a feeling of not wanting to push something away, wanting to resist, disliking something. So again, just looking at these as expressions of the wanting mind, this is not there's no moralistic right or wrong with any of this, but it's just an awareness. Is the wanting mind present right now? And is that making me feel peaceful, or is there something else going on? So just becoming aware of the wanting mind. Simple observations, sitting in meditation for a few minutes. You get bored and you want the talk to start, so you've got something else to do. It's just the wanting mind. Sitting in meditation, you hear a sound and are momentarily annoyed by it. Or sitting in meditation, you think about what you might like for a snack when you get home. Or sitting in meditation, you think briefly about something you're dreading. So these things are all what I experience at one time or another during meditation, and I'm sure everybody else does too. But these are just examples of the wanting mind arising, momentarily moving through your awareness, and in each case there was really no substantial change in your physical circumstances. Just the wanting mind moving you out of equanimity and into agitation, or into dukkha. So that's why sitting in meditation is such a valuable practice, is because we see that it's almost like a laboratory of experience, a personal lived experience where we can see this coming and going. So we notice nothing really substantially changed in that moment between being annoyed by a sound or distracted by it and that moment in which we just surrendered back into equanimity. Nothing substantially changed other than that momentarily moving of the wanting mind through awareness. It arises momentarily, it lasts for a few seconds, sometimes a few minutes, sometimes days or years or decades of our lives, but these things just arise and pass away. You see it in meditation, you become familiar with this movement of the wanting mind. So the wanting mind temporarily upsets your equanimity, and for the duration of the thought, in the wanting mind there is agitation, or dis-ease, or dukkha. And when the thought in the wanting mind passes, whether of its own accord or because you redirected it to the breathing or to releasing tension, the dukkha associated with that particular movement of the wanting mind subsides. So it's just that simple. It's just that simple. It really is. Like I say though, maybe decades go by where the wanting mind is really driving you. In my case, I was really driven financially and materialistically to wanting to make a lot of money and have a nice house and nice cars and things like that, because I was convinced that this was what I needed to be truly happy and to finally be at peace with myself. But as I realized, when I started to get these things, that there really was no peacefulness to that. In fact, there was an uptightness because now I was worried about losing what I had. I was worried about being able to continue to pay for the stuff that I had accumulated. So, I think a lot of us can go on that journey for a long time in our lives where we're chasing those things, those ingredients of happiness.
Excuse me, Ken.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the wanting mind, you're talking about more than just while we're meditating. You're talking about
Right.
in our, because, it's kind of how, Alan, I don't know if you have any experience with that, they're talking about detachment all the time, detaching with love, but,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, I think I heard somebody say one time, it isn't always so much about what you do, it's why you do it,
Mm-hmm.
or not what you want, but maybe why you want it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, they want a nice floor, but it's not because, it doesn't have some other intention with it, other than, a nice space, gonna provide for
Right.
this.
Yeah.
It can get kinda
Yeah.
complicated sometimes, because it's like, okay, you want an ice cream, but you want the ice cream because you're feeling empty inside, because somebody hurt you at work.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then I'm like,
It-
okay,
it-
we'll go on for ice cream.
Exactly. Like Linda
So sometimes it's
says
why.
famously, it's simple but it's complicated, which I love.
No, I think it was Ginny,
What's that?
about the meditating.
No, just it's simple but it's complicated.
She
That
said
that
it
little
about
phrase is a Linda thing. But no, you're exactly right. We use the experience of meditation as kind of a laboratory of human experience, because all of those things, we see all those things arising and passing away in the space of meditation, but we're also seeing that nothing substantially changes. So it's like we can get that urge to eat ice cream, and then we can go eat the ice cream, and then that urge passes away. But we can notice that during meditation that these same desires and these same urges arise and they pass away, even though we haven't taken the action to satisfy them. It's just that we're either allowing or we're intentionally redirecting that expression of the wanting mind back to equanimity. So you're exactly right. We use meditation as kind of the laboratory of human experience. And we see how this comes and goes, and we see how the wanting things to be different than they are in the present moment causes this agitation to whatever degree. The letting go of that idea restores the peacefulness that is your true nature. And that's probably something that's helpful to keep in mind, is that you're not you're not a broken, flawed being. According to the teachings that I follow and that I teach, we have original perfection. It's kind of different from that concept of original sin, which is kind of that everybody's sort of, broken. They're born broken. But on the contrary, everyone is perfect. You have this perfect nature, this unconditioned perfect nature. But that gets covered up with ideas and with being hurt over the course of your life, and with these different experiences. It covers up this perfect nature that's at the center of your being. And so really, when we meditate, we start to follow these practices, you're starting to re-access that perfection that's already there. And there's some things on the last page that we'll get to that talk about that perfection. But that's the thing that's really, in my mind, hopeful and helpful about this practice, is that it's not, okay, it's a long journey to rebuild yourself, from the ground up. But no, it's not, you don't have to do that. It's just becoming aware of the things that have covered up that perfect nature at the center of every being. And as soon as you start to realize that, you can re-expose it.
Well, we also live in a society that, or with advertising, that is constantly telling us that we need to crave something else, to be something else, to look some way else, to have something else. So
Oh, sure.
maybe that's that's why the meditation helps so much to
Mhm.
sift through that.
Yeah, well, there's not much money to be made from people who are pretty satisfied and chilled out and just okay with where they're at. I mean, there's not a lot there. But again, it's important that everyone understand that it's not wrong to want ice cream, and it's not wrong to want a new car. But like in my case, the thinking that the new car would earn me respect and, admiration from other people, and then from that I would feel good about myself, that's the problem. Nothing wrong with a new car, nothing wrong with wanting a new car and wanting to wash it and keep it clean. But it's like, if you think that that's going to be the solution in some way to that inner, what you feel is missing, then that's where the dukkha arises, because it can't fill that need, So if you eat the ice cream, just know that, maybe not the entire tub of Haagen-Dazs at one time. I say that, but to me it's a single serving container. So.
Ben and
I was
Jerry's.
like, wait a minute, how did that? I can eat 3 of
Yeah,
those.
I'm talking the big ones, Yeah, so those are single serving containers.
Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, Ben and Jerry's, yes. Yeah, actually, Ben and Jerry's probably more so for me. But yeah, so, these pleasures of life, these are things to be enjoyed and cherished and absolutely. But just be aware of what's going on with the wanting mind. So I want to read that last paragraph on page 2. Are any of these thoughts in the wanting mind wrong? Not at all. But the lesson to be taken from the examples is that the wanting mind disturbs equanimity. So you'll suffer just a little, or maybe a whole lot, depending on what the content of the mind is. It's also important to understand how these episodes of wanting are nothing more than ideas that arise and pass. In the examples above that I used, things that are pretty minor and trivial. These are things that are pretty minor and trivial, but the point is to notice how we tend to do the same thing with bigger, more troubling issues. Shuri Huber says, how you do anything is how you do everything. So that's why I think it's important to use these little things as kind of your practice, because then they do translate to the big things. Stephen Levine, he says on clinging, he says, non-attachment is not the elimination of desire. It is the spaciousness to allow any quality of mind, any thought or feeling to arise without closing around it, without eliminating the pure witness of being. It is an active receptivity to life. So that's a beautiful quote, and that goes to show that it's not a passive tuning out and just letting the world kind of beat you up, but it is you are actively part of this, but in that pure witness of being, you have that spaciousness to allow everything that's coming into consciousness, everything coming into awareness. You have the spaciousness to allow it come through, arise and pass away, and just be the pure witness. And that unconditioned awareness is an expression of who's at the center of your being. That pure witness that allows and watches things come and go and is perfectly peaceful and at ease and equanimous. And out of that place, I think that's where we find the wisdom and the love and the compassion to really be able to say what Shantideva said. And I read that again because I really want this to be just the spirit of this place. May I be a protector to those without protection, a guide for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world. until everyone is healed. If that sounds familiar and you've seen the movie Kundun, that is a passage that the Dalai Lama repeated in that movie. So that may be where you heard it. So a great deal of the stuff that we think and obsess about is imaginary. Things we fear might happen, right? If you think about the things that you've dreaded today, the things that have caused you to be worried or fearful, I mean, a lot of this stuff is things we think about that might happen, that could possibly happen, but they aren't actually happening. And we devote a tremendous amount of energy and time to them. And what if we eliminated just some of that? How much more peaceful and energized would we be? Cheryl, I think you were telling me about a book called 10% Happier or something like that, where this guy started to do the practice. He was a journalist, and he wrote about it after doing some meditation and mindfulness practices. And so he said he was kind of doing this casually, but more for the journalistic experience, I think. But as he did it, he started to realize, yeah, I really am letting go of a lot of the stuff that isn't particularly important. And in doing that, he felt freer and more happy, more peaceful. And so I kind of think about that title, 10% Happier. If you could let go of 10% of the stuff that makes you fearful or anxious or worried, I mean, that'd be pretty good. 10% is wonderful. And I can tell you that that's like a toehold. If you can just start to chip away at it a little bit through the practice, you'll start to realize that there's a whole lot of stuff that you can let go of, and again, that incredible feeling of being free from all of that craving and clinging and aversion. There's a quote from the Buddha. He said, "Whatever a person keeps pursuing with their thinking and pondering, that becomes the inclination of his or her awareness. If a person keeps pursuing thinking imbued with renunciation, abandoning thinking imbued with sensuality, his or her mind is bent by that thinking imbued with renunciation. If a person keeps pursuing thinking imbued with non-ill will, abandoning thinking imbued with ill will, his or her mind is bent by that thinking imbued with non-ill will. If a person keeps pursuing thinking imbued with harmlessness, abandoning thinking imbued with harmfulness, his or her mind is bent by that thinking imbued with harmlessness." So this is just noticing where your mind is being directed, and that intentionally directing it over and over toward these four cultivations that we so often talk about: compassion, loving kindness, appreciative joy, and equanimity. The more you refocus your awareness and your intention towards those things, the more that becomes your natural state of being. When you begin to let go of the unwholesome, unskillful, unhelpful stuff, you discover you have a tremendous amount of wholesome energy that you can devote to what is important. So sometimes, like in our family lives, in the dynamic that we have with partners or in different relationships, there can be a lot of things that we're hung up on and worried about, and those consume so much energy that it makes it difficult for us, or even impossible, to really be truly available to people for what's important. I can tell you that's been the case in my own life. But as you begin to let go of some of these things, you find that you really can just sit with somebody and be completely present and listen to what they have to tell you. And that you can become a healing force just in your presence, just in being there for others, really hearing them. So, You can do things like positive social and political discourse. I talked about this a little bit last week because sometimes, again, we think that we need to be so passive just in order to have equanimity. But it's really not true. It's about the intention that we have. So, for example, is it possible that we can go to a protest and rather than sort of protesting about our hatred for a particular politician or party, instead of that being our focus, instead being the focus on what we really want is to make sure that other people can be well and healthy and happy and taken care of. So it's kind of a withdrawing your energy from the ill will and instead focusing it on the positive intention. So, you still do the protest. That Ram Dass quote that I used before, you may only protest if you love the people you're protesting against as much as you love yourself. That also sounds like something close to what Jesus said, but I think that's just sort of a neat standard. I don't know that any of us really maybe get to that level, but it's just something to think about. So rather than protesting against, it's more, this is what I want to see accomplished. Think of non-attachment as lightening your load by skillfully putting down the things that are unwholesome. Then you can pick up what is wholesome, and you'll have the strength, energy, and endurance to carry it. There are what are called the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots, and those are greed, ill will, and delusion. If you let go of attachment to any of the three unwholesome roots, what remains is wholesome. So you don't have to worry about looking at every single thing you do and saying, is this right, is this wholesome? But just look at if you can let go of greed, if you can let go of ill will, and if you can let go of delusion or non-mindfulness, you let go of those, everything else is wholesome. What remains is wholesome. As engaged and compassionate beings, we can and should take action in life, but with wholesome intentions. Otherwise, we just generate more negative karma that we need to work through, which is what most of us have done throughout our lives. That word karma, I use the Sanskrit word karma with the R. The Pali is kama. And sometimes it's helpful to use that word just because it sort of breaks maybe the sort of the mental association that we have with the word karma, which is we think that there's sort of a in the universe there's like a balance sheet keeping track of what we've done right and what we've done wrong, and then every so often we kind of get, we get paid back for it. And really in the meditation teachings, the meaning of the word karma or kama is just action, and action with intention. Action with intention. So for every little episode of the wanting mind you're able to recover through mindfulness, you should convert it to the development of something positive. And so there are what are called the 10 paramis, or perfections.
Can I stop you for a minute?
Yeah.
The unwholesome roots. Okay, what is ill will? Give examples of ill will.
A simple one that we probably all do pretty habitually. Maybe you're in a supermarket, you see someone, and because of their appearance, you maybe generate just a little feeling of, I probably don't care for that person. I'm probably not too fond of that person. So that can be ill will. Sometimes, I'm not talking necessarily about something like racism, but we're also kind of classist, and so we might see someone and we just start thinking, I don't like the way that person looks.
What about what you were saying about protesting with ill will against a person rather
Mhm.
than against a policy that's hurting other people.
Right, right. That's a very good example. I mean, you know, there's a lot of protests right now, and if you go protest because you hate Donald Trump, for example, you know, that generating of ill will, that doesn't feel good. But if you protest because you have an idea that you want to help other people, you know, and I'm just using Donald Trump as the example. I'm not saying that that's what anyone should be, you know, thinking. But, you know, there's a difference between protesting the individual. You know, you could use Hillary Clinton for the exact same thing. To protesting, you know, I hate Hillary. Hate, you know, yeah. It's non-directional. We can't, you know, we don't take hate and aim it at someone else. You know, we just wallow in the hate, in the ill will. So.
We need to be loved and not be hate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We need to be love and not be hate. But the way to get started on that is through the awareness, you know, and it's just noticing that, yeah, when I have ill will, when I'm mad at my brother-in-law, you know, or, you know, some family member, or I'm hostile towards an ex-partner or a spouse or something like that, those are examples of ill will. You know, it just leaves you with that unpleasant feeling.
So is jealousy, would you put that under greed or ill will?
I think jealousy can be greed. Yeah, it can be, I think some of these things can be like a little bit of both, but jealousy, for example, maybe you're jealous for someone else's time, and you want that time to be devoted to you, for example. That sort of jealousy can be a sort of greediness, you know, kind of the, I need this amount of this person's time. I want all of this person's time. You know, we've all heard stories of where real love can start to turn into sort of an odd obsession, and then it can become real unhealthy, you know, so that's how jealousy can be. Or if you've ever been in a situation where you're, you know, jealous of a partner in some interaction, again, it feels like that's what dukkha is. It's just that feeling of, you know, this is not peace, this is not freedom. So, I don't know, hopefully those are some good examples of what ill will might be. We're coming to about the end of our time, and so I want to respect that and end here on time. And I want to take just a couple of minutes to do a little practice here at the end. So what I want to do, you know, everyone has seen these 10 paramis, and I would encourage you to maybe just read through those. And then next week, what I want to do is just focus on these with a clean slate. These 10 perfections, these are not things that you are lacking, that you need to get in your life in order to be perfect. These are aspects of your being right now. And so what we're going to talk about is just ways that we can accentuate these. Again, just sort of clear the dust off from all the years of the wanting mind, and from all the years of delusion and not understanding, and so that we can just polish these and bring them to the surface, and you'll start to experience them. So next week we'll talk about these, and that'll be the focus.
So in other words, bring it next week.
You know what I'll do is I'll write up a new one next week with these on them, and then I want to kind of get into them in some detail, because these are really these are just wonderful. These are, but there is some explanation to them that's helpful. So we'll leave it here as far as the teaching. But what I'd like to do is we'll just spend a couple of minutes together before we leave cultivating these 4 states that I've been mentioning. And again, those are compassion, loving kindness, appreciative joy, and equanimity. So I think it's a great way to kind of end and give you something to walk out of here with. So let's just share a moment of doing this together. So I just invite you to close your eyes, and I'll share some thoughts, and just see if you can let this really touch your heart. Just see if you can feel this in your being as I share these things with you. That first off, there are beings throughout the world who are suffering in many different ways. It can be the suffering of maybe someone who's extremely wealthy and powerful, but is suffering because of stress, worry. Maybe it's someone who is having trouble paying bills. Maybe it's somebody who is being hurt or abused emotionally or physically. There are just all sorts of ways that different beings are suffering. And so it is helpful to cultivate a spirit of compassion toward all beings. And this may seem like a simple thing, but it is incredibly powerful and important. So if we just become aware of these beings who do suffer, and we cultivate this wish that all beings can be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And it's regardless, it's just across the board, whoever they are, even if they got themselves into trouble, even if they, can blame themselves for their misfortune, we still want all beings to be free from suffering and from its causes. So if someone caused their own suffering, well, we would like them to be free from whatever it was that caused that. The greed or the ill will or the delusion that caused that suffering. So may they be free from suffering. May they be free from the causes of suffering. And sometimes that suffering is not caused due to any fault of their own, but is external to them. And so we want them to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And may all beings be surrounded by love and kindness. May all beings be joyful and happy. May all beings be peaceful, free from the wanting mind, free from craving and clinging and aversion, peaceful. And may all of you sharing this space with me tonight, whom I am so grateful for. I'm so glad to just have you with your feet on this floor and being present in this place. This is so wonderful. Thank you so much. May you all be truly, truly happy. I'm still learning how to play the big bell.